I was actually looking for you.
She was written, they are initiating the awakening trial. Hearing that robotic voice, he heads up asking himself if then his head on the road again, relying on it becomes an awakening trial. Suddenly, he sees as he lay there unconscious on the road, in a place where his body started turning into a holographic room. After some time, he climbs into the holographic room, then he touches his head and back, which thud on the ground. He ends up asking himself where he is, but as soon as his eyes fall on the legs that are now attached to his body, he starts shuddering, asking himself if his legs are reattached to his body and his injuries are gone. He Suddenly, a huge monster appeared at his back. The monster created a loud noise. Kim turned his head to look. As soon as he looks down, he gets another notification window that Quest successfully strikes an attack on the test monster. And if he upon a successful strike, the monster will perish regardless of the amount of damage inflicted. Hearing this notification, Kim, while looking up at the monster coming toward him, fearfully asks, what is he saying? He wants him to land an attack on this monster. The monster angrily looks toward Kim, and then extends its claw toward him to attack. He sees the monster's claw coming toward him. He gets scared. As he crouches all the way, as the monster's claw is pinched, and the monster's claw is grabs the room's lid, and Kim puts his hand in front of his face, fearfully thinking he's going to die. However, the monster takes its claw from him, and crouches hard on the ground,
Play unlocks more play, more rewards, more exclusive experiences, more early access. Go get rewarded. Go play.
Blend precision and aggression in your game.
I blend precision and aggression by just paying attention to all the details around me and also just trusting my instincts.
Where in the room he stands his corpses scattered all over because he killed and regenerated so many times. As he stands there blankly because he is unable to understand the situation happening to him, the notification window appears before him that humanity is a species capable of awakening its full potential. Then another notification window appears that the awakening trial will end once he has awakened his abilities and successfully attacked the monster. When this is finished, he will be returned to the real world. Also, do not be concerned about dying in the middle of the test. His body will be regenerated no matter how many times he dies in this area. Hearing that notification, Kim clenches his teeth, asking regenerated, do they think of his life as a video game and smoothing? Then stands there with a sad face. He thinks the whole thing sounded like a pretext for a fantasy novel, but he still had to believe what they said, because the pieces of his corpse were scattered right next to him. Then he clenches his teeth, thinking he is supposed to be a player, and he is never even given a choice while the monster roars and moves toward him. As the monster moved toward him, he fearfully stepped backward. The monster roared and created a magic ball with his voice and threw that huge magic ball toward Kim. That huge magic ball crashed Kim on the ground of that holographic room, but he with all his might skid and came out of that explosion, thinking he was forced to either repeat a painful death or accept the whole situation. However, Kim came out of that exploded magic ball and stood in the smoke. A bright wavy light started emerging from his body, and he got the notification that awakening success. His stats and abilities will now be generated, and then his stats window appear before him on which his HP, strength, agility, and mana are mentioned. Also, his level was increased from 0 to 1, his strength was increased to 25. His agility was increased to 11, and his mana was 22. Also, he got unique traits. Then, after reading his stat
Find
window,
control.
clenched his fist,
Stay calm
stooped
and
his
focus.
foot, and run toward the monster to attack him. As soon as he ran toward the monster, he got the notification window that awakened his abilities and his physical. Kim, with all his might, made a fist and jumped toward the monster to punch him, thinking there was only one option for him. He had to accept everything to fruition and finish this miserable fight. However, Kim punches the monster with all his might and crashes as the smoke emerges from his body. The monster gets cracked. Kim punched the monster, threw away parts of his broken body, and stood there. He got the notification window that the damage and actually inflicted original trial was complete. Then another notification window appeared, and they congratulate him on his awakening. Hearing that voice, Kim smiled, and then he excitedly cheered up. And then another quest window appeared before him that he had completed the quest successfully. Also, he had attained the physical ability. A wavy light came out of Kim's body, and he stood there thinking that he would return to the world. As the wavy light was still coming out of his body, he stood there silent and thinking, and then he looked all around the holographic room. Then he looked up and raised his voice, asking what was going on. He said the trial was complete, stop messing around, and let him out of there. However, many notification windows appear before him that the errors have occurred, and he is unable to leave the testing area due to unknown error. Kim stands there sweating and panicking and asks what. Then another notification window appears before him, and they inform him that they are initiating the awakening trial. Therefore, the huge monster appears before him, and he silently looks toward the monster, asking what is he talking about. He can't leave the testing area. As Kim stood there was blank, and didn't understand what was happening around him. Meanwhile, the monster attacked Kim with its claw and split him. They regenerated Kim's body, while his previous corpse was lying near him on the floor. As his body was regenerating, he slightly smiled, saying, give him a break. Then he raised his voice, asking, what is this? Meanwhile, the monster attacked him with its claw and splashed him again. Kim's body parts splash on the floor, and they start regenerating his body again. After his body regenerated, he sat there on the floor, thinking of an unknown error. It was like a bug in a video game, and he was stuck in this dimension for an eternity. Like a bugged-out video game character, he went through the endless cycle of death and regeneration for a week, a month, a year. He sits there blankly, thinking, his mind slowly wasted away, while his corpses are lying there on the ground all around him. Furthermore, with the hopeless face, he thinks he was constantly regenerated physically, but not mentally. But then, a window notification appears before him that his vitality has increased, and they are modifying backup data. Kim surprisingly looks toward his status window and jumps, asking vitality to increase, modifying backup data. In response, the notification window appears that he has increased his vitality by repeatedly taking hits from his opponent. He stood there before his notification window status, thinking he didn't care about how it happened. Then he asked himself, did it just said that the backup data was being modified? Then he looked up, excitedly asked then did the unknown error had been fixed as well, and in response, the window appeared that the error had not been changed, and he was unable to leave this area for eternity. Kim hears that voice hopelessly smile, and then the monster appears there and moves toward him to attack. However, Kim, while running away, thought some time went by again, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. He tried everything he could do to run away. He even tried to resist being killed by the monster. Therefore, his status window appeared before him, and this time his HP was above 1000, his MP was above 500, and his strength was above 80. Furthermore, his agility was above 40 and his mana was above 50. He read that status window, thinking these efforts increased his stats immensely, but they were all meaningless. In those years, the monster killed him thousands of times, and every time the monster killed him, they regenerated his body. Kim stands there injured, thinking he remembers what had happened on the first day, and he decides to stop resisting. However, when he came to that holographic room, the first day the window appeared before him that the test monsters were programmed to be transcendent tier creatures. His chances of killing them were 0. Moreover, 10 years after his confinement, he says the system that he wants to ask a question. Kim hopelessly asks the system what's happening outside on Earth. Right now, the system replies nothing much has changed on Earth. Times move 300 times faster in this dimension than it does on Earth. Furthermore, for 10 years, there are about 12 days in his world. Hearing this, Kim stands there and says 12 days, then he clenches his teeth, remembering the message from his mother when she asks him to bring fried chicken for her. Then Kim, with a sad face looking toward his hand, says he promised to buy some fried chicken for his mother. Meanwhile, the monster attacks him and crashes him. After this, they regenerate his body again, and he sits there in the holographic room thinking 500 years after his confinement. Everything becomes blurry to him, his family, his friends. He had even begun to forget who he was. Only one question lingered in his mind: why did this thing happen to him? However, Kim sat there on the floor, folding his arm. Meanwhile, the monster moved toward him from a side to crush him. As the monster from upside down extended its claw toward Kim, while he sat there was asked why, and he repeatedly asked his question. As the monster's claw came near him, he sat there looking down, punched the monster with his hand, and crashed its claw. The monster roared. Kim sat there, clenched his teeth, and angrily asked why. Then he shouted, and raised his voice, asking why as he was still shouting. Moreover, he raised his voice, asking humanity to awaken the trial's fairness, and the player's abilities. All of those didn't matter to him anymore. He only wanted to know one thing. Then he asked them why this error happened to him. Then, with a hopeless voice, he says he only wanted to live a happy life, and then remembers the time he part-time worked in the store and clenched his teeth. He was furiously thinking about this. All meanwhile, the monster moved toward him from behind his back to attack him. He stands there furiously thinking there is only one target for his suppressed anger to turn to. Thinking this, he jumps toward the monster and punches him with all his might. However, 10 years after humanity's awakening day on Earth, a crack appeared in the sky, an error message stating that an immeasurable burst of energy had erupted within the server. The system's firewall has been destroyed. After breaking through the crack with his fist, Kim came out of that holographic room while the trial monster inside had already perished. Kim stood up there in the sky while the wavy bright light was coming out of his body. However, the total period of his awakening trial was 3,000 years, during which he was able to reach the maximum level for all of his stats. Kim HP, MP, Strength, Agility, and Mana were reached to maximum level. However, the system counter is unable to connect to the main system due to a system error. Also, they are initiating offline self-synchronization. Kim stands there in the sky, slightly opening his eyes, thinking every day for the past 3,000 years he has thought about the very first thing he wants to do once he returns to Earth. And he remembered the message from his mother when she asked him to bring some fried chicken for her. As he stands there, the notification window appears before him that system synchronization is complete. 10 years have passed on Earth since his departure. Kim stands there up in the sky and looks down toward the city, asking the system to find his mother's location right now. The system replies unable to run the search engine. This feature is unavailable in offline mode. Hearing this, Kim sighed, saying to the system, it was as useless as ever. Then he descended to Earth to find his home. Kim arrived in the city where he lived and stood outside the building where he lived with his family. Seeing the situation of the city, he worriedly asked what happened to their house, because the whole city was destroyed and barren. Meanwhile, two military soldiers pass by him holding their guns, and looking toward him they stop there. One of them calls out to Kim and asks him to listen to him. Kim stands there and turns his head to listen to him, and the soldier steps toward him holding his gun, informing him this place is a restricted area for civilians. Then he requested that move back to the safety zone. Immediately Kim looked toward the soldier, surprisingly thinking the military soldier had just called their neighborhood a restricted area. Kim stands there asking the soldier what exactly happened there. Hearing this soldier surprisingly asks Kim what he means. And Kim stands there before them, asks them how this area became so demolished. Hearing this, one of the soldiers starts dizzying, while the other one, his companion, stands beside him, turns his head, and looks toward him. Then he sighs, and with closed eyes and a sad face, he asks Kim if Sir has been living under a rock. Then he tells Kim this entire region was destroyed during the dungeon break 10 years ago. Hearing this, Kim gets shocked and clenches his teeth, thinking dungeon break, then asks himself if is he talking about the disaster back then pointed toward the building where he used to live with his family. He asked the soldier what happened to the people living there. The soldier sighed and squeezed his eyes, answering, they were all killed. Hearing this, Kim was shocked and started trembling, became speechless, and asked himself if all killed his mother. As he was thinking, the soldier stood before him and told him to wait. Then he thoughtfully told some people who survived because they were outside. Furthermore, he heard the government evacuate them to a safety zone, and looking toward Kim, he said he should head over there if he wanted to find them. Hearing this, Kim angrily looks toward the soldier and grabs his collar, asking, where is this place? The soldier gets scared and starts shuddering. Then the soldier starts sweating, and holding Kim's hand, pointing ahead, replies, it was the shanty town in the B neighborhood. The other soldier, holding the gun with one hand, put his other hand on his companion's shoulder. Hearing this, Kim released the soldier's collar while both soldiers were scared. After this, Kim turned and ran away from there, and the soldiers standing behind were scared. Then the soldier whose collar Kim grabbed put his hands on his heart and sighed. Later, both the soldiers stand there and hear through the radio that was attached to one of them's shoulder with the belt. They alert the soldiers, informing them they have a situation on their hands. A dungeon break is imminent in a nearby area. Also, the estimated location is the Shantytown's emergency sector in the B neighborhood.
Hunter, please hurry. This is an emergency.
Report each other. However, in the B neighborhood emergency sector, a bright wavy light emerges in the sky, while the military jeep screeches in that area. And from one of the jeeps, Hyunjun Oh, Lieutenant Colonel of the Capital Defense Force, comes out holding a cigarette.
Time to warm up.
However, the military jeeps gather in that area, and the military soldier stands around Lieutenant Colonel. He stands there holding a cigarette in his mouth, raises his voice, saying secure the perimeter, and calls for reinforcements. Then looking from the sky where the bright light circle was emerging, he shouted the dungeon breaks about to unleash. There is
Red
no
flower
way they can
technique
stop
type
this.
one.
Then he angrily looks behind the soldier and shouts at him, asking what happened to the guild support is still not there.
Let's
The
see.
soldier salutes him, answering, no sir, they have just been dispatched. Hearing the colonel angrily hit his fist on his knee. And then he abuses the guild support, shouting they must be taking it slow because this is a shanty town and they are trying to take more of their funding. After this, Jai Yoon Lee, first lieutenant of the Capital Defense Force, came to Lieutenant Colonel with a sad face, asking what should they do now, sir. Lieutenant Colonel stands beside the jeep and turns his head angrily, asking what she thinks they should do. Then he shouts from a line of defense and deals with the small monsters for now, and they will shoot the bigger ones down once they get them back. Hearing this, Yoon Lee gets speechless, and then points ahead to ask if it is serious, sir. Then she raises his voice, saying all of the civilians will be killed if they do this. However, Lieutenant Colonel shouts at her, asking if would she rather have all of them killed by the monsters instead. Then Lieutenant Colonel reviews her, saying just go and form a proper line. They will all be screwed if they let the
was a good
monster escape from them. Hearing this, Lieutenant Yoon Lee gets scared and speechless. As the military soldiers holding their weapons gather in Area B, meanwhile, Kim steps there, stands behind the soldier jeep, looks toward that area, and asks himself what is going on, and why are there so many soldiers there as well. Then stands there, he asks the system what's going on around there. The system responds a dungeon break is imminent in B's neighborhood. Furthermore, the dungeon will spawn in approximately 3 minutes, and hear the voice of that window. Kim stands there, think a dungeon break. Then he asks himself if a disaster is going to happen in this neighborhood, and then he clenches teeth, thinking his mother is in danger. However, Kim steps ahead to enter that area while the military soldiers stand there holding their weapons. They surprisingly turn their head and look toward him while he keeps stepping toward that area. Then one of the soldiers stops him there by putting a hand on his shoulder and requesting him to move back because the dungeon break is imminent in this area. Ben says he has to evacuate this area. Hearing this, Kim stands there and doesn't stop and angrily looks toward the soldier. However, looking toward him, the two soldiers falter and thud backward on the road, and Kim stands in between the soldiers and angrily looks toward them. While the soldiers gather around him get scared on the other side, Lieutenant Colonel and Yoon Lee stand far from the soldiers discussing the important matter. Lieutenant Colonel looks toward the soldier, and Kim angrily shouts, asking who let a civilian in there. Then he raises his voice and gets him out of there immediately, while Yoon Lee stands beside Lieutenant Colonel, surprisingly looking toward Kim. After this, on Lieutenant Colonel's order, all the soldiers clunk their guns toward Kim and gather all around him. Kim silently stands in between the group of soldiers. Then he clenches his teeth and angrily looks toward the soldier and says scram, while the soldier stands there starts shuddering, and they all retreat, and he passes between them. Sees this, Yoon Lee scolds the soldiers, asking what are they doing? They can't let a civilian enter the danger zone. While the two soldiers sit there on the road, one of them recognizes Kim and fearfully replies, Yoon Lee player, that man is a player, madam. Hearing this, Yoon Lee was surprised when the wavy purple light emerged from the sky. Kim kept stepping ahead toward that area, and the soldiers silently stood behind his back holding their guns. As the bright light keeps cracking in the sky, it signals the beginning of the dungeon break. The sky clangs from that side where the bright light is emerging. See this? The soldiers start shuddering. One of them fearfully asks, the sky just shattered. However, the monster starts pouring out of the sky, and it causes the soldier to lose hope. Sees this, the soldier gets scared and starts trembling. A lot of monsters pour out of the sky, and they spread in the area roaring, while the soldiers stand there and shout back to dungeon break. The soldiers stand there fearfully looking up toward the monsters spread in the area B. One of them fearfully looking up asks, this is ridiculous, how are they supposed to defeat those things with guns? The other one stands beside him and says they would just be committing suicide by going in there. Then he fearfully asks Yoon Lee if the guild support is not there yet, and she has no answer and stands there. She breaks and runs away from there. Sees her running away, the soldiers stand there fearfully stopping her to extend their hands and calling out her name. She keeps running toward Area B where the monsters spread to attack the supply. On the other side, Kim reached the Area B neighborhood. As he was climbing the stairs, a notification window appeared before him that the dungeon had been opened, guaranteeing a dungeon rank of 5 stars. And he, while climbing the stairs, clenches his teeth, thinking he is sick and tired of these dungeons and monsters. As he was climbing the stairs, 2 monsters from the roof of the houses next to the stairs moved toward him. One of the monsters roars and quickly moves toward him to kill him, while Kim silently keeps descending the stairs. As the monster gets near him from his backside, he punches the monster and splits it. Seeing this, the other monster moves toward him quickly, while he stands there on the stairs distracted him. The monster with several heads moves toward him to attack, and Kim swings their hands and punches the monster, saying get out of his way. Then he crashes the monster and falls him away. As Kim throws the monster away on the ground, the place where the monster falls, the ground breaks apart. However, the monster gets severely injured and trembles lying there on the cracked ground. Kim jumps on the monster's head and splits it. To see this, the other monster, his companion, gets furious and starts roaring. After this, a lot of monsters angrily move toward Kim to kill him, while he angrily attacks them and crashes many of them. Kim starts killing them one by one. He kills many of them, but many more appear there. He jumps up to attack the monster, hits them with his leg, and falls them away. Kim attacks 4 to 5 monsters in a single blow and crashes them all together. As he was killing them, meanwhile, the dragon monster appeared there, and he jumped up and crashed the dragon monster with one hit, and throws the dragon corpse toward its other companions. Sees this, the other dragon monsters move toward him to attack him. However, Kim attacks them and splurts the dragon monster into pieces. Kim stood there in the air after killing them, while the dragon monster's body pieces were falling. Kim jumps in the air and makes his fist hit the remaining dragon monster and crashes them. On the other side, Yoon Lee was running to find Kim, and finally, she arrived in Area B. She looked all around there thinking about where he was going. She saw him go this way. She climbs the stairs and stands upstairs. She is surprised to see Kim crashing, splurting, and cracking the monster in the air. However, looking up, she surprisingly says, "This is impossible. Even the military war machines are unable to stop a 5-star dungeon." Then looking toward Kim standing there between the dead monster's corpse, she asks herself, how could a single person achieve this? After killing all the monsters, Kim stands there. Meanwhile, a huge explosion occurs far from him. Yoon Lee stands behind Kim and sees this explosion and gets scared. While Kim doesn't notice that explosion, and he silently stands there between the monsters' corpses. However, from that explosion, the boss monster appears and starts roaring, and when the boss monster sees his companion's corpse lying on the ground, he gets furious and his eyes turn red due to anger. Then he roars and extends his hands to attack Kim. Stands there, Kim gets the notification from the system that the boss monster has appeared. Also, another window appears before Kim that killing the boss monster will terminate the dungeon break. Hearing that notification voice, Kim clenched his fist and angrily looked up at the boss monster, and then he stepped toward the monster to kill him. Seeing Kim stepping toward him, the boss monster gets surprised, and then he angrily roars while Kim
At Great Wolf Lodge, the splashes are huge, the action never stops, and the smiles come easy. So bring your pack together and wolf out! Book your stay today and strengthen the pack.
The #1 pharmacist recommended vitamin and supplement brand.
Reach your impossible. Lenovo Legion.
angrily looks up toward the boss monster and clenches his fist. Sees the boss monster, Yoon Lee flops on the ground and starts trembling, asking herself that's what a 5-star boss is. While the monster was roaring there, meanwhile, some citizens heard that noise got there and stood beside the wall. Yoon Lee stands there, turns her head, and looks toward the citizens standing beside the wall, thinking they are the survivors of the neighborhood. While the citizens were sacredly looking up toward the boss monster, Yoon Lee stood there, clenched her teeth, thinking this was their chance. They needed to evacuate them. Then she turned her head and looked toward the citizens, raising her voice. They must get out of there immediately. Hearing her words, the citizens look toward each other. Meanwhile, the monster roars, and they all get scared to hear that boss monster's voice. Hearing the boss monster's voice, they all start sobbing. Meanwhile, the boss monster runs toward the citizens to kill them. However, they cry and start running to save their lives. They all run away while Kim stands silently there on the road and doesn't move. While the monster was quickly moving toward them, as the citizens were running to save their lives, among them a lady holding the hand of her little daughter was running. Her daughter was crying and asking for help when suddenly her foot tripped with her leg, and she fell there on the road with her teddy bear. The little girl lying there on the road cries while calling out to her mother. Her mother turns and runs toward her daughter to take her with hers. Meanwhile, the boss monster gets near them and roars, and then he opens his huge mouth and throws her sticky tongue toward the lady and her daughter. Sees the monster's tongue coming toward them, the lady, while crying, holds her daughter tightly and hugs her. Meanwhile, Kim gets there and splits the monster, and the little girl hugging her mother stands there on the road and opens her eyes slightly to check why the monster hasn't attacked them. As she opened her eyes, she was surprised to see Kim standing there before them holding the monster's splurt mouth in hand. Then the lady holding her daughter runs away from there, thanking Kim for saving them from the monster, while Kim stands there, plop the monster's head on the road. However, the citizens were still running away to save their lives from the monster, and Kim stood there beside the splurge monster, silently watching this all. After this, Kim stands there looking toward the citizen and asks the system to check if his mother is there. The system replies, receiving the command. Then a window appears before him, and he will begin searching the area based on his memory information. While Kim silently stands there to get the exact location of her mother, the system tells him 2 seconds until the search is complete. The time is counted down, and when the system informs the search is complete. Hearing this, Kim's eyes open wide, and the system tells him 0 match found, exiting searching mode. However, Kim stands there, hears this, gets hopeless, presses his lips, and remembers his family when his mother lovingly calls his name, and when his father lovingly calls him his son. Also, he remembers his little sister when she calls him big brother. Remembering his family, Kim, with teary eyes, hopelessly stands there quietly. Then he thinks 3,000 years throughout all that time, he struggled to not forget them, but it all just feels so faint now. Kim, thinking this all, squeezes his eyes. Meanwhile, the monster gets there and roars behind him so loudly. While Kim silently stands there before the monster corpse, the monster roars so loudly that Yoon Lee puts her hands on her ear and closes her eyes, thinking, what's this noise? After this, she winked and looked toward the monster, while the monster cracked and threw the magic balls that he created in its mouth with that loud noise toward Kim. Kim silently stands there with his back to the monster and asks the system to activate his ability and physical enhancement skills. However, the system does the same Kim asks it to be done, and the bright light spreads all around it. Therefore, the notification window shows that the physical enhancement is activated and his awakened mode is now on. Kim's eyes and hair start to glow, he turns his head, activates his energy, and remembers the chat that he had had with his mother before entering that holographic room. Then he jumped up toward the monster while remembering the time when he was chatting to his mother in the store. He hits the monster's magic ball with his hand and blocks his attack, remembering the message of his mother when she asks him to bring some fried chicken for her. Sees this, Yoon Lee stands down, surprisingly looks up toward Kim, blocks the monster's attack, and thinks incredible he is deflecting the boss's attack out of the town. After deflecting the magic ball, Kim tapped on the ground, while Yoon Lee stood behind him, and surprisingly looked toward him, thinking he didn't even leave a single one. The monster gets furious to see how Kim has blocked his attack and killed all his companions, then he roars and angrily looks toward Kim and creates a huge magic ball in his mouth. The monster throws that magic storm from his mouth toward Kim, while Kim silently stands there in his power. A bright wavy light came out of Kim's hand, and he made a fist with his hand and ran toward the monster to kill him. As Kim ran toward the monster, tears were flowing from his eyes because he was missing his family and the time he spent with them. As he runs toward the monster, the tear from his eyes falls on the ground. The monster creates the magic tornado and throws it toward Kim, but that magic does not affect Kim. Sees this, the monster gets surprised and roars. Kim jumps toward the monster boss and punches him with his fist. The boss monster, with Kim's one punch destroyed, and starts disappearing. Sees this, the citizen and the military people stand there, get surprised, and then the bright light emerges from the sky and Kim's body is completely covered with that bright light. Kim stands there before the ruined ground, and Yoon Lee sits to her side and sees this all. She's shocked and speechless. Kim stands there, deactivating his ability, and stares at the ruined ground with teary eyes, thinking he is tired of all this. Then he squeezes his eyes. Meanwhile, Kim's mother runs and quickly climbs the stairs, holding the poster in her arms, moved toward Kim. Sees her, Yoon Lee sits there with folded legs on the ground and surprisingly looks toward her. Kim's mother, looking toward her son, extends her hand and smiles, stands behind her, and calls out Kim's name. Kim stands there, turns his head, and looks toward his mother. Sees his mother before him, he is surprised, and the notification window appears that voice data is identified. The information matches with the player's memories, while Kim, looking toward his mother, thinking the past 3,000 years ran through his mind. Tears start flowing from his eyes, and he stands there thinking his long-lost emotions begin to burst within him. Kim cries out to his mother, and his tears drip down on the ground on the other side. His mother stands before him, also cries, and while crying she puts her hand on her mouth. After this, both mother and son ran toward each other. As his mother ran, the poster she held in her arm fell from her hand and flew in the air. And that posters were of Kim's missing report. Furthermore, on that poster, Kim's name, a picture of the place where he worked, and all of his information were mentioned. Both of them tightly hug each other and burst into tears. Kim's mother holds his son tightly, sobbing, asking where in the world had he been. She searched everywhere, looking for him. Kim, while holding her mother, bursts into tears and presses his lips. He cries and apologizes to his mother for that. He can't get her fried chicken as he promised. As both of them stand there hugging each other tightly, the monster throws his tentacle toward Kim's mother and splurts her. That tentacle pierces Kim's mother's stomach, and she takes a deep breath. Kim stands there holding his mother, and with teary eyes, he looks toward his mother and calls out her name. Also, the drops of blood spurts on Kim's face. Kim stands there thinking about 3,000 years, which is how long he spent training on top of his corpses, but this empowered body couldn't even protect the one he cared for. Kim's mother's blood dripped onto the ground, and the tentacle pierced from her stomach, and blood was flowing from her stomach. Also, the tip of that tentacle that pierced from his mother's stomach pricked on Kim's stomach, while Kim stood there holding his mother in his arms. The monster squelches the tentacle from Kim's mother's stomach, and she plops on the ground, then she thuds there. While Kim sits beside her, he calls out to his mother. The bloody monster swings its tentacle, while Kim sits there holding his mother in its arms, crying. Seeing this, the monster gets happy and streaks its tentacle toward Kim. But before the monster attacks him, Yoon Lee gets there aside, plunks her gun, and starts shooting the monster. She hits the bloody monster, and the bullets pierce from its head. Kim put his mother's head in his lap and cried, calling out to his mother. His mother was injured, lying in her son's lap, brushing her hand on his face. Also, blood was flowing from her mouth. Kim's mother lovingly looks toward her son, saying don't cry, and that she loves him, and then her hand plops on the ground. Kim sits there holding his mother in his lap, looks up, screams, and cries. He feels hopeless and the darkness around him. However, in the 39th Battalion, Capital Defense Force in the control center, the lieutenant colonel was smoking a cigarette while sitting on a chair with his legs on the table, and Yoon Lee stands before her, folding her arm back. Colonel turns his eyes and looks toward her, asking if they have been talking about him non-stop. Haven't they? Yoon Lee replies, yes, sir. After this, Lieutenant Colonel clicks the lighter and lights the cigarette, saying goodness. Then he asks Yoon Lee what Kim is doing to gather so much attention in a single month. She replies he is clearing every dungeon he can find, and the nearby dungeons of this region have already been devastated. Further, she says the guild's complaints are piling up, and several are expected to take action very soon. In response, Lieutenant Colonel sits on his chair, smokes, and stays silent. He rips the envelope from his pocket, then extends his hand and puts it in front of her, saying they have their orders. She silently looks toward the envelope, and he says her recruit Jibong Kim before he causes any more trouble. On the other side, Kim is killing the monsters in the dungeon. He killed so many monsters there as he killed many of them. Meanwhile, a vast monster gets there. Kim attacks the monster and punches it in its stomach. The monster gets the hole there, and blood spits out of its mouth, and everything falls out of the monster's stomach. However, Kim skids and jumps toward the monster, attacking it with all his might, and a vast dust explosion occurs in the dungeon. As soon as the dust explosion ended, Kim stood there holding the monster's skull in his hand, and the blood was dripping from the monster's mouth. Sees this, a bunch of monsters get there holding the sword. Kim kills them all one by one with their sword. Moreover, the monster spurt corpse lying there around him on the ground, and thousands of more monsters run toward him to kill him. Kim pulls out the sword from the dead monster's corpse and raises it, then activates his physical enhancement ability. Kim's body starts to glow, and his eyes and hair turn gray. Also, the wavy light spreads around him, and the window that awakened mode level 1 is on appears before him. Kim creates the storm with his magic, and then he points the sword toward the monster, and due to that storm, the sword cracks into pieces. The storm moved toward the monster, and the ground cracked there due to that storm. However, the window appears that all monsters are eradicated, and the dungeon has been cleared. After this, Kim sits on the stone under the sky on a rainy night, while Yoon Lee gets there holding the umbrella. She puts her umbrella on Kim. He heads up and looks toward her. She is getting drenched in the rain, but she raises her umbrella on Kim. Looking toward him, she says she searched everywhere for him. Then she slightly smiles and briefly introduces herself, saying that she is Jin Yoon Lee from the Capital Defense Forces. Furthermore, she says this was the first time they had met, but it wasn't the best time to introduce herself before. Kim sits there, head down, and silently listens to her, but does
Tylenol. Care without limit.
In the park, Google Play is dropping exclusive rewards and VIP experiences for PlayPoints members. The more you play, the more you win. Get PlayPoints, Pixel Buds, and limited edition merch. Go get rewarded. Go play.
Hunter, please hurry. This is an emergency.
I'll end this quickly.
The holidays begin here at the Disneyland Resort.
Time to warm up.
sees this. Yoon Lee says she understands what he is going through with the monster. Then she asks him if he wants to destroy all the dungeons in the world. Is she right? Then, looking toward him, she says, but that would be utterly pointless because the dungeons would spawn after a certain amount of time. He would only waste his time and energy by venting like this. Kim doesn't respond to her, and she stands there in the ring, looking an umbrella over him. Further, she stood there silently, staring at him. After some time, Kim replied, asking her if he should sit there and do nothing. Yoon Lee looked toward him, saying not what she was trying to say as she was about to complete her sentence. But before she completes her
Red flower
sentence, Kim
technique
adds his
type
point,
1.
saying that for 3,000 years he had to suffer bone-breaking, flesh-ripping pain. Every single day back then, even as his body broke down and turned to dust, he still endured that L to the
Arrange your
tail
strength.
Then Kim quickly gets up, and that umbrella falls in Yoon's hand. She surprisingly looks toward him, and he stands there before her, looking into her eyes and asking, but all of that effort is wasted now, and she still wants him to force himself. Then, looking toward her with teary eyes, he asks if she wants him to endure more than this as they both stand in the rain. He stepped ahead to leave while she stood there, head down in the rain, rooting and turning, saying she would help him to get his revenge. Hear this, he stops there, and she stands behind him and says, "Dungeon's monsters." She will help him get rid of all of them, but he has to come with her. Kim silently stands ahead of her in the rain, and she stands back at him, looking toward him. However, 6 months later, in intense care, Kim's mother was admitted, and she was in a coma.
You're an
Kim goes
unworthy
to the hospital to see his mother. He stands outside, looks at her through the mirror window, and puts his hand on the window. He silently, looking toward his mother, smiles, calling out to her mother. Moreover, he says he has become a civil servant in a pretty high-ranking one, so he won't be able to visit as often now. Further, he asks if she knows how government employees are always busy. Then he smiles, saying don't be sick just because he is gone for a while, and asks her opinion. After this, he brushes his hand on the window, saying he will be back soon, and then he opens his coat pocket and leaves for the exit door of the IC. There, he scanned his phone in the phone scanner as he scanned the door open, and he came out. As soon as he
Red
came out,
flower
on either side,
type 1.
civil service officers were there to take him. Seeing him there, they all salute him, and he extends his hand, gesturing to the moment. It's all right, and then he steps ahead and throws his tie. As he steps ahead, his clothes become physical armor, and he comes to his car. He activated his physical enhancement pilot. A bright light came out of his body, and he stood there, ordering the officer to let go. After this at night, they all go to the dungeon where the colossal monster hawks are flying. Kim stands in his activated energy and looks up toward the hawk monster. He jumps up. The monsters are squawking. He attacks the monsters and kills them all in one blow. After killing the monster hawk, Kim and his power stands there, and a bright aura emerges from his body. However, Captain Chiol beats the bar, wearing his uniform and hat on his head, sitting on the chair where he is drinking the wine. Also in the bar, the news was on television that the government had officially announced its relationship with the Shield Guild. 2 reporters were giving this news when one told the viewers about the government's decision. Another one, the lady added her point, tells the viewers about discontinuing the Shield Guild's protective services in the Seoul metropolitan area. Captain Chiol sits on the chair, fills his glass of wine, adds the ice cube to the glass, and then clams it to melt the ice in the wine. After this, he gulps half a glass of wine, puts the glass on the counter, and sighs. Meanwhile, the director of the Shield Guild comes there and sits on the chair bedside Chiol. Captain Chiol heads down and asks him what business he has there. Looking toward Captain Chiol, the director grins and replies, asking what he means. He is just there to drink with their scouting Captain Chiol beak. Hearing this, Captain Chiol remains silent. Then he removes his hat from his head and, looking toward the director, replies, "Get to the point, sir." The director looks toward Captain Chiol and answers that honesty is what he likes about him. Then he asks if he is aware of him too, right? While Captain Chiol sits there gulping wine when the director smiles, saying to Captain Chiol that everyone's been talking about the men. Hearing this, Captain Chiol flinched the wine glass from his mouth while the news reporter on television was giving the news that due to the sharp decline in the dungeon breaks recently, experts have speculated that the government may have acquired a secret weapon, as Captain Chiol was still gulping wine, and the director sat there listening to the news. Putting his hand in his pant pocket, he says the guy is ruining it for them out there. He has caused a significant setback in their business. However, while rattling the ice in the wine glass on the table, Captain Chiol asks the director if they should get rid of him. Hearing this, the director asks Captain Chiol why he always has to be so
Hunter,
frightened
please
talking
hurry.
about removing someone so quickly like that. Captain Chiol, refilling his wine glass, remains silent. After
Time to
this, the
warm up.
director switches the paper on the counter before Captain Chiol, and Captain Chiol
Red
sits
flower
there,
technique
turns his
type
head,
1.
and silently looks toward the paper. However, the director grins and looks toward Captain Chiol, saying there has been an order to contact him and recruit him into the guild, and he will be treated as a team captain. Meanwhile, Captain Chiol starts to say something that stays silent and presses his lips together. Then he gets up, picks up that paper, and turns from one, holding his hand. Captain Chiol put that paper in the inner pocket of his coat and stepped toward the exit door, repaying understanding. While the director sits on the chair behind, looking toward Captain Chiol, he asks where he is going. He still needs to finish his drink. Captain Chiol peeks the door, answering he has been drinking already. However, the director sitting on the chair trunk and surprisingly looks toward the wine glass on the counter. On the other side, in the 5-star dungeon, the monster bird nests at nighttime. The sky is dark, and a bright light emerges in the sky. And from that bright light, Kim and his team members wearing their costumes appear. They all stand on the cliff, and Kim stands first, while his team members stand behind him. Then, the notification window appears before Kim that he has entered the 5-star dungeon, the monster bird's nest. This dungeon is used for dungeon break scenes. Kim and his team stood up the cliff, looking down toward the monsters flying there as Kim stared at the monster. His team member stands behind him and informs Captain Kim that this is the last that's due for a dungeon break this month. Kim turns his head, answering all right. All units stand by at this location. After this, Kim jumps up the cliff toward the monster bird nest, while his team members stood there watching him. Kim flew in the air and moved toward the monster's nest, while the monster's bird was squawking. Standing there in the air, Kim asks the system about the boss's location. The window appears before him, and the system responds to him, receiving a command scanning for the boss's location. As Kim stands there in the air, monster birds, while squawking, start gathering all around him. Kim punches the monster bird and splits it. After this, he starts cracking the monster bird. Then he sat on the monster bird, hit it, and jumped up. The monster fell away injured while Kim jumped up in the air. The window appeared before him with 5 seconds until the scan was complete as the time was counted down. In the meantime, Kim crashes many of the bird monsters. As the system says, 3 seconds are left while Kim is crashing the bird monster's head, then he hits the monster and splits it. Seeing this, many more monster birds, while squawking, quickly move toward him. As Kim was killing the monster bird, the system informed him that there was 1 second left. The bunch of monster birds gathered around Kim, and he crashed them all with his one hit. Meanwhile, the system tells him the location scan is completed. The boss is located 7-8 miles southeast of the current location. Kim kills the monster birds with his activated physicality enhancement power sword, and the bright light spreads there while all the monster birds crash. However, Kim stands in the air, and the bright light comes out of his body while the window appears before him, activating the ability of physical enhancement. Also, his awakening mode is on, and then Kim flies fast in the air and quickly crosses all the mountains in his path, and finally arrives at the destination. Kim's body was completely covered with the bright light, and the window appeared before him that he had arrived at his destination exiting navigation mode. Kim stands there in the air. Meanwhile, the monster bird boss, Albatross, gets near him, and he looks up toward the monster boss. The monster boss, Albatross, angrily looks toward Kim and squawks, while he silently stands before it. On the other hand, Kim's team members stand up on the hill. One of them looks through the binoculars to find out what is happening on the other side. The team vice captain asks the one who is looking through binoculars how the situation was going. The one who is watching through the binoculars replies it will probably be over soon, with Captain Kim winning by a landslide. Hearing this, the team members murmur, and one of them surprisingly says incredible. He is defeating hundreds of monster birds and the boss by himself. He is a complete monster. After this, the vice captain stands behind him and says all right, they should be moving soon as well. Retrieve all of the monasteries they can find, and don't leave a single one behind. All the team members stand there, turn their heads, and reply yes, vice captain. As they all stand there, suddenly a bright light emerges from behind, sees this vice captain, surprisingly thinks why, is the dungeon entrance opening right now. And from that light, the dagger switches and moves toward them. quickly sees the dagger coming towards him. The vice captain's
Leave it to me.
eyes wide open, and he fearfully thinks of a dagger. However, the dagger tips and splits the skin of the vice captain's face, and the girl with her team comes out of that dungeon entrance holding swords. The girl attacks the vice captain with her sword and slashes him. She stabs the sword in the vice captain's stomach, and he thuds down. Also, Captain Fiol had arrived with the attackers. However, the girl stood there holding her sword, and the blood of the vice captain was dripping from his sword. The vice captain drizzles with his blood and lies on the cliff upside down, while the lady holding her sword stands there before the voice captain near the dungeon entrance. Seeing them there, the voice captain team member surprisingly asks who they are people. However, the voice captain team member stands there and flinches, and the lady takes a side and points her sword toward the voice captain, asking Captain Fiol if that guy had just died from that. Fiol steps toward the vice captain's body, answering the fact that he died from a blow like that meant he wasn't Jibon Kim. Hearing off, the team members are surprised, and one of them thinks Jibon Kim is after their captain. After this, Captain Fiol stands before Kim's team members and looks toward them, asking if he only wants to know one thing, which is that one of them is Jibon Kim. On the other side, Kim, with all his might, makes a fist and punches the boss monster Albatross, while the bright light spreads there when Kim punches the monster. Also, that bright light is coming from Kim's body, and this light spread wherever it went. Kim hits the boss monster Albatross, while the monster squawks and blood spurts out of its mouth. After this, the monster boss gets furious, and while squawking, he throws the fireball in its mouth. Kim stares at that fireball. Then the monster throws a firestorm toward Kim with its breath, and it causes an explosion, and Kim completely sinks into that firestorm. On Captain Fiol's side, he stands behind Kim's team members, waiting for the answer. Then suddenly, everything there starts shaking. Captain Fiol stands there surprisingly, thinking an earthquake could have been a large explosion at a distance. After this, looking down, he sighed, thinking, could it be? Then he angrily cracked his hand and stepped over to Kim's team members, saying it looked like none of them was Jibon Kim. What a shame. After this, Captain Fiol heads up and looks toward them, saying he guessed he will just have to kill all of them until Kim decides to show up. On the other side of the dungeon, a man with silver hair stands up at the hill edge, thinking the man is there. They are scared, and then he asks himself why he has come already. Furthermore, he needs to find out if it is because the rift formed earlier than he thinks it was. What was that rift about? He doesn't know. Nobody does. They need to find out if the rift is harmful and go and find him. However, at Kim's side, the firestorm crackles, and the window appears before him with that unique trait-generated elemental resistance rank S. Therefore, Kim stands there controlling that firestorm with his left hand, and his status window appears before him that his level had already reached the maximum points. At this time, by directing that firestorm, he got a new elemental resistance rank S.
Stay calm and
After
focus.
some time, the firestorm ended, and there the smoke remained. Only Kim stood before the injured Albatross, and Albatross furiously looked toward him. Kim looks up toward Albatross, saying, let's wrap this up, and then he clenches his fist, turns and jumps toward Albatross to attack. Kim punches the Albatross on its stomach with all his might and splits it. The Albatross crashes to the ground into pieces, and the window appears before Kim that the boss monster has been eradicated. He clears the dungeon. As soon as Kim killed Albatross, the moon's color flashed and got into its normal color from red to red. Kim stands there before the Albatross's corpse, and a sparkle occurs in Albatross's head. From that sparkle, a spear falls. Kim hits that spear, thinking did the boss drop it. He had never seen this thing before. Stand there, Kim stares at that spear, asking the system what this thing is. The system starts scanning that spear and answers him by calling the base stone. Kim surprisingly asks the base stone what is it for, and then a window appears before him on which it is written that the system was unable to access further information in offline mode. Hearing this, Kim makes an annoyed face, asking the system why he doesn't have anything useful. Meanwhile, several windows of warning appear before Kim, and he surprisingly looks toward the window. Then another window appears before him, showing that his allies are under attack at the dungeon entrance. On Captain Fiol's side, he was beating Kim's team members one by one. He crushed one of them and punched him in the face, and his teeth fell out, and then he hit and fell in the way. Seeing this, his companion takes out his sword and moves toward Captain Fiol to attack him. But before he attacks, Captain Fiol punches him and injures him. Blood spurts out of his nose and mouth. Then Captain Sheol hits him with his leg. Then he jumps and crushes his head. And then Captain Sheol cracks his head on his knees while his teeth
This is
fall
why
out.
I fight.
The sword fell from his hand, and Captain Sheol hit and put him away. After gravely affecting all of them, Captain Sheol stood there saying no. One of them was Kim, while the blood of those people was on his clothes and face. As they all stand there up on the cliff, the moon flashes, and they all look up toward the moon. Then Captain Sheol's companion comes to him and bows his head before him, informing him someone has just defeated the boss and cleared this dungeon. Hearing this, Captain Sheol, looking up toward the sky, remains silent and thinks that Kim had made an explosion earlier. After this, Captain Sheol turns, and with his one hand, he wipes the blood from his face and puts his second hand in his pant pocket, saying his companion lets go, find a path for them to climb down this cliff. His team members turn and step ahead on their boss's order, answering yes sir as they all move to leave. Meanwhile, Kim, with his bright light, jumps there on the cliff and crashes into the area of the cliff where he lands. They all stop there, and Captain Sheol turns his eyes to look at a brilliant light spread all around. After some time, the light fades and the dust and smoke spread there, while they all get scared and step backward. From that smoke, Kim's team member lying there injured notices a reflection. The smoke disappears, and Kim comes out of that smoke. Seeing him there, one of the team members smiles, saying Captain Kim, while Kim stands there angrily, clenching his fist and looking toward Captain Sheol and his team members. After this, he steps ahead toward Captain Sheol, while Captain Sheol stands there, putting his hand in his pocket, and says to Kim he is finally there. Also, Captain Sheol's team members stand behind him, holding sticks. Kim keeps stepping toward him. Captain Sheol, looking toward Kim, says they have been wanting to see him for a long time, and then he gives Kim a little introduction of himself. Telling he is Sheolbeak, the scouting captain of the Shield Guild, he presses his lower lips between his teeth. As Kim stepped toward him, and the sky aside them got purple. Seeing Kim in front of him, fear fell on Captain Sheol. However, the sky and trees become purple, and Captain Sheol becomes afraid and continuously looks at Kim unblinkingly. Captain Sheol's face starts to sweat, and the bright light reflects in his eyeballs. Kim stands before him, turning into a monster. That monster takes out his tongue and puts the tip of its tongue near Captain Sheol's eyes. Sees this, Captain Sweat, and understands Kim's powerful aura. However, everything gets normal. The weather, the sky, and Kim. Kim stands there before Captain Sheol, seeing him near the captain stepping backward, his eyes wide open due to fear. Both Kim and Captain Sheol stand before each other, and the sweat is dripping from the captain's.
And you celebrate with a snack.
Pandas don't sell CRM. Ads on LinkedIn do.
What is this?
Is Tide? If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide.
He was unable to speak, and then he started to tremble, thinking about this overwhelming pressure. Then he stands there and questions himself. Is he shaking right now? Kim stands before him and calls out to him while Captain flinches and his mouth falls open in fear. Captain Sheol starts trembling, and Kim asks him if he has just said that he is from the Shield Guild. Captain's companion sees this, stands behind him, and gets angry. Then one of them points toward Kim angrily, asking to show some proper respect toward their captain. After a second, the other one stands beside them, shouting at Kim if he wants them to end his life. Captain Sheol stands there before them, turns his head on them, scolds them, and orders them to shut their mouth. Captain Sheol's companions reply, yes sir, and then Captain squeezes his eyes, recalling the words of the director who comes to him in the bar. Then he remembers when the director looking toward him gave an evil smile, saying there had been an order to contact him and recruit him into the guild. He will be treated as a team captain. Remembering the words, Captain Sheol pressed his lips. He thought that was a load of nonsense. Furthermore, he believes this man is far too powerful to be recruited as a mere captain, and they have to make him an ally, even if they have to recruit him as an executive for it. Stand there. Captain Sheol regains his spirit and says, Kim, listen. He is sure he has heard of their guild as well. Everyone knows that they are effectively the strongest guild in South Korea, and they extend the offer for him to join them. If he does, they will let him have everything he could ever desire. However, everything he could ever do didn't contain a single lie because the minimum annual salary of the guild's captain was $3 billion, and the authority of a major guild could not be challenged even by a national government. However, Kim's team member, the one whose eye was caught lying there injured on the cliff, thinks that without Captain Kim, their team will be hopeless. Moreover, many players consider a guild recruitment offer to be a significant turning point in their lives. It was an offer that nobody could refuse and a desperate risk for any player in the guild. Captain Chiol's team members stand behind, laughing, gossiping to each other that they won't reject this offer. Kim stays silent, and then, after a moment, he says he has one question for him. Captain smiles, responding to being his guest, while thinking this, Kim is interested. Kim asks the Shield Guild who is responsible for the capital city's defense if he is right. And as he clenched his teeth, he remembered the time when the monster stabbed his tentacle in their mother's stomach. Then Kim angrily asks Shield if the B neighborhood shantytown emergency sector is also under the guild's responsibility. Shield smiles and replies of course, and their guild will have control over many more as soon as Shield replies. Kim punches him and falls him at the feet of his team members. Captain Chiol gets severely injured, and his teeth fall out while his team members stand there to abuse him, asking what he thinks they is doing. Kim stands there and asks them, but they can't help. Then he answers he is trying to avenge his fallen subordinates. So this has absolutely nothing to do with his emotions. However, the Shield Guild is South Korea's strongest and greatest guild. They are the protectors of the perilous capital region. They are the shield of South Korea. The guild has over 5,000 members, including one of the 3S ranked players in South Korea. Moreover, Kim makes Chiol severely injured, and his team members, holding their weapons, run towards him to defeat him. Kim, with his one blow, attacks one of Chiol's team members, and the stick he holds in his hand to attack Kim hits his neck so hard that he gets badly injured. After this, Kim attacks the other man on the team. Kim slams his leg on his neck, and when he turns, he bites Kim's leg. Kim punches the fastball, but they were men. Kim attacks them all together with his one blow and hits them out. All of their legs, arms, and bones get broken, and their teeth are broken and thrown out of their mouths, and they all get severely injured. But they don't give up and come forward to attack Kim with their broken bones and teeth. Kim grabs one of them and quickly spins him around, and due to that spin, a strong gust of wind destroys them, and the other team members hold their weapons back away in fear. After twirling them, Kim throws him far away. He gets them all get scared. Captain Chiol is severely injured, lying in pain, and clenches his teeth to see the situation. Also, he is shocked to see Kim's courageousness. After this, Chiol asks himself what on earth is going on right now. He brought their most elite members on this mission to make sure they succeed, but he is just wiping the floor with them. Then, looking toward Kim, he says, and he is even doing it with such a bored expression on his face. However, in Bangbi, Seoul, the Shield Guild headquarters, the injured are brought to the hospital in an ambulance and put on a stretcher to take them to the emergency ward. The doctor there, pointing ahead toward Ward B, says to his team they have 5 more patients in critical condition. They have to hurry because patient C has internal bleeding and prepare for surgery immediately. However, the director gets there in the hospital holding the cigarette in his mouth, and he says this is why he told Chiol to recruit the man peacefully. Seeing the director there, 2 doctors stood aside and said, "Good evening, director." In contrast, the director stands there with a cigarette in his mouth and, putting his other hand in his pant pocket, replies he thinks they can all agree that this is not a good evening, doctor. Then he asks the doctor if he needs to speak with Captain Chiol, should they give him a little privacy. The doctor respectfully replies, but the captain is still unconscious, sir. The director steps ahead toward Captain's stretcher, saying he will take care of it and leave it up to him. The doctor slides the curtain, replaying, "Of course, sir." After this, the director takes out the object from his coat and front pocket, asking to look at this man. He beat him up badly, didn't he? Then he quits that object, saying that he still needed to hear what happened there, and then he stabs that object in Chiol's stomach. After this, he glues the button. As soon as the person right thing goes into Chiol's body, his hand starts to twist, and lying there on the stretcher, he starts checking. While the director stands there holding the object after a minute, Chiol comes and sits up on the stretcher, panting. After this, the director sits on the bench, lying beside the stretcher and looking for Chiol. He says he never expected to ever see him like this. Captain, looking toward the director, calls out his name fearfully. Then he heads down the stairs and after a minute, he replies he is ashamed. However, the director gets up from the bench and with a cigarette in his mouth, asks him to tell him everything.
Too slow.
Captain Shaw head stretches his lower lip, and then regains his spirit and replies 10 single-handedly defeats the entire scouting team, including himself, sir. Hearing this, the director is surprised. Then he takes the cigarette out of his mouth and surprisingly asks if it is really that strong. Captain, with a disappointed face, replies yes, he is incredibly strong, and his power is almost unlimited. Hearing this, the director sees his eyes because it was hard for the director to believe that Captain Shaw would admit his opponent's superiority. After this, the director sighs, saying let him ask him this, then he asks Shaw if he thinks Kim could compete with their guild master. Captain replies well, of course he can. Then he presses his lips and gets silent. Because he could not come to a conclusion, Kim and the Shield Guild's guild master's strengths were both beyond Shield's comprehension. The small man cannot see past the wall he is facing. Thus, he cannot properly grasp what lies beyond the other side. After much thought, the captain replies he doesn't know, sir. Then the director, leaning back on the bench, is slightly forward, asking Shiol if he thinks they can get him to join their guild. Captain Shiol clenches his fist and presses his lips. Then he replies, no, sir, he is not sure why, but he seems to be hostile toward them. Then he remembers the time when Kim was crashing his team under his grip. The king in that time, his eyes wide open, and his face very confused. Then he says,
Flower technique type 1.
Sees this, the director surprisingly looks toward him. Then he gets up from the bench, saying, well, he thinks he understands
No
now.
use.
After this, the director moves toward the curtain. He pulls back the curtain, saying fix him in, for the time being, Captain. His body should still be under some stress, since he used a drug to wake him up. Captain Shiol sits there, turns his head, looks toward the director's window, and replies, yes, sir. After this, the director stands outside the captain's room, smokes a cigarette, and blows the smoke out of his mouth, thinking they will have to take care of Kim before the other guild recruits him. Then he took out his mobile phone and dialed the number, and while coming toward the exit door of the hospital, he called someone, saying he sent a request for execution to the Vice Guild Master. After this, the call ended, and the director stepped toward the exit door. He thought they would have to get rid of him if he didn't join them, and he wouldn't leave a single threat to his well-being. The next day at 4-Star Dungeon, the Abyssal Shore, the crab monster appears, and Kim, wearing his armor, stands there. The monster roared, and Kim splattered the monster in one blow. After killing the monster, Kim calls the system, saying he wants to ask it something. The window appears before him to warn him to go ahead, playing as Kim stands his back toward the shore. Suddenly, from shore, the water started blubbing, and the huge fishy monster got out of the water. With the rapid wave of waterfalls there, Kim clenched his fist, jumped, head up toward the fishy monster, and punched it so hard that the huge fishy monster splattered in his one blow. After this, Kim stands there and asks the system to give him a detailed explanation of the Daystone that he got from the Albatross corpse. The window appears before him. The command received from the Daystone is the black orb he obtained previously as the system was about to complete his sentence. Kim added his point, saying he was aware of that already. He was asking if he knew anything else about it, and then another window appeared, indicating that he was unable to access further information in offline mode. Hearing that, Kim waves his hand and sighs, saying forgets it, and then another window appears before him. However, he can absorb the Daystone into the system. As Kim was waving his hand, hearing those words, he stopped there and looked up toward the window, asking the system to absorb the Daystone into the system. After this, Kim took the stone from his pocket and stared at it, holding it in his hand, and asked the system if he could absorb it. As Kim stands there staring at that stone, a window appears before him, telling him that the absorption of the Daystone will grant 2 results. Firstly, a system upgrade. Secondly, the access to the source of the dungeons. Hearing this, Kim stares at the stone, surprisingly thinking the source of the dungeons. He replies that the system absorbs it. The system answers to the command received, initiating Day's stone absorption. After this, the guy with silver hair wearing a hat and holding the sketch page in hand enters the crowded place. People pass by him, turn their heads, and glance at him. Looking toward him, people start murmuring. He passes by the crowd of people staring at that sketch page, thinking this is not easy. As he was looking suspicious, people there got scared to see him. He called the lady passing by him. The lady flinched, and he showed the sketch page to her, asking if she had seen a person who looked like this around there. The lady stares at the sketch page and flutters, then she gets surprised and remains silent. On the other side, Kim was absorbing that day's stone. A bright light was coming out of it, and it spread there upward. As the guy stands there showing that sketch page to the lady, a handmade cartoon picture.
And the snap, showstopper.
Let's try. Time for a counterattack. Flash. Flash. Enough with the jokes. I need a break. Flash. Flash.
されたのです。そのお姿は。それに他の者どもは無能どもめ。いくら良いものを与えようと使いこなさなくては意味がないではないか。陛下、あれは一体。まさか。あれは厄災のバリュー。なぜだ。不留学でこうしたはずでは。まさか蘇らせたというのか。そんなことができるはずは。あの封印が命がいる。異常なまでの回復術を得得した悪魔のような男。いや、だとしてもあの竜をけしかけるなど不可能だ。操っているとすれば魔族。あの男はどこだ。はい、例の遺族使いだ。ルード殿ですか。何でも休養ができたとかで先ほどサレンツァへ。あのタヌキめが寝返ったか。なぜ引き止めておかんのだ。陛下がルード殿には特別待遇をとおっしゃったので。陛下、どうかお気を助けて。貴様もぼーっと突っ立っていないで何か手立てを講じたらどうだ。このデクノボめ。御意。おい、あれを準備しろ。あれと申しますと。ケラウノスさ。ケラウノス。早くしろ。お言葉ですが、まだあれは試験段階で出力が強すぎて照準がまともに合わせられません。しかもこんな街中での使用は危険です。愚か者め。You're an unworthy opponent.
I'll send. I need a break. This is it. It is time to die. Take this! open it. I see it all.
I'll lend you my strength.
Leave it to me. Now, wait, that tongue too slow. I see it all.
I'll lend you my strength. I'll send you to hell.
Time for a counter. It's no use. Let's speed up. And open it. This is the end.
I'll lend you my strength. It is time to die.
Damn it. Time to warm up. I'm ready. Let's try. This will really help me grow. Punishment! I'll end it. Now! You can't avoid it! I'll end this! Punishment! I'll end it. Now, I'll shred you! It's over. Tearing through. Monarchs. Punishment. I'll end it. Now. I'll shred you. This is the end. With the jokes. You can't avoid it. You're an unworthy opponent. Now, entertain. Monarchs. Punishment. Too slow. Monarch. Punishment. Arranging my strength. Let's see it all. Enough. Let's go. I need a break. Time for a counter. An opening. I'll end it. Now. You're an unworthy opponent.